Welcome back to the Better Everyday podcast, where we're unlocking our best self one episode at a time. My name is Grace Garcia, and this is my husband, my wonderful husband, David Garcia.
Hello.
And we are on episode 35, people. David was really excited to play that for you guys. So show him some love and do like the clapping emojis or something if you're listening to this. But today is my turn to share, and I was thinking about, we'll talk about this story that I thought was a pretty funny story now in hindsight, but about family. I want to talk about family. Mm-hmm. And specifically how maybe family roles change as you get married.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting because of what a comment you said today. Via text. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that. You guys know David and I are obviously married. We've been married for 8 years. It's going to be 9 in the summer. I'm always like anticipating. I think it's awesome that we get to age together.
Hold on.
8 years.
All right.
And I feel like our family dynamic is a little bit easier than other people, because I have heard people's stories and they always say like the mother-in-law or the sisters or crazy aunts and uncles or cousins that like demand so much of their time, like these horror stories. And I'm just like, God, thank you for blessing me with my family. But how do you think our family dynamic is compared to others, or do you not compare yourself, or do you hear of these horror stories, or is it just me being one-sided?
I mean, I think there's like a stereotype where people usually don't get along with their mother-in-laws.
Yeah.
I'm just getting rid of all the, I'm hearing melody in my head right now saying some sort of dark humor, and I'm trying to just surpass that.
What would Melody say?
My mom's dead, so you don't got to deal with her, or something like that.
It's true, though. That's what I always say.
But I would have liked to deal with your mom, so that's not really a thing.
That's nice.
Granted, I only was in close proximity to her for not that long.
Yeah. But you guys, the little time that you knew each other.
The little time that we knew each other, we got along really well. The only thing is that every time we saw each other, it was always like very short spurts. So it's like, we don't know if I would have gotten tired of her. She would have gotten tired of me.
Everyone loved her, even if they knew her for long periods of time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say everybody loved me. It's all good. You know.
Everyone loved her for long periods of time.
So there's that. And then my mom is like 3,000 miles away, so you never have to deal with her.
Not never.
Only
but again, it's in small spurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like once a week. I mean,
whenever she comes around, it's only for like about a week.
A week a year, yeah.
And then she loves you. I mean, she always tells me, like, it's not like she messages you, take care of my boy. She messages me, like, take care of my daughter.
She knows how you are.
Yeah, I guess so. But she's just talking out of trauma, I think.
Aww.
And yeah, I mean, with our family that we have here, I think there's a good balance to it. So yeah, I don't think I have a problem with how it is.
Because Genesis 2:24, we bring Bible into it, and I'd like to hear your perspective on that verse, where it says, "A man and a woman shall leave like their family, their parents." I'm paraphrasing here; you guys can look it up. And the man shall leave his family and cleave onto his wife, and they shall become one. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you?
I think what that looks like to me is more like the olden times. I don't know what year. I can't put a year to it. But in the times where like you expected a family to get their son ready for marriage. Mm-hmm. You expected a family to get their daughter ready for marriage. You know, like, and I mean... I might get like, people not liking what I'm saying, but I mean, it's back in the day, that's how it was.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's right or whatever, but back in the day, it was like, we're going to prepare our daughter and she's going to learn how to cook and she's going to learn how to clean. She's going to know how to take care of her family. She's going to know how to take care of a child. Like, you prepare her. And the same thing with a son. We're going to teach him as many skills as we can so he can provide for his family, so he can go out to work, so he can, if something gets broken down at home, he's going to be able to take care of it. Like, there's like a certain standard to being a man. And I think if a family thinks that they did a good job, they can let these two little birdies fly away and just be like, hey, come visit us once in a while. But it's not like we're going to like be attached to the hip. But I think there are, especially, I mean, the stereotype is the mothers usually like to cling on to their kids and watch over them and make sure that everything's okay. And they like butt into everything. And it's, from that perspective, I think if you don't think you did a good job, I mean, that's one reason why you're sticking around, is making sure that everything's okay. But I do believe that two people should kind of have their distance away from their family, at least for a good couple of, maybe a year or two or whatever. Like, just let them figure it out on their own. And it goes back to, when the mother bird teaches the little baby bird how to fly, like tells her to jump off the branch and learn how to fly, like they got to learn how to fly on their own. Yeah. They got to know what mistakes to make, to avoid, to learn from. Like, I think it's super important.
So when you say distance, do you think it's like physical distance? Is it, we can live in the same area and let's just not talk? Like, what does that distance look like in a practical way?
Listen, if you are in the same area, I would ask, why are you in the same area?
Like same zip code, you mean? Or like city?
Sure. Same zip code is like you're only a block away. So if you're in the same zip code, I would definitely ask, like, why are you living so close? Mm-hmm. And usually I think it's either the kids go, I want to live around my family, and it's like a security blanket, or it's the parents, the mother usually, asking the kids to live close to them because they want to watch over them. And again, going back to my point, like, you don't think you did a good job? Like, if you, especially for like, if you're raising a boy, if you think that you did a good job, then you think that he's going to choose wisely as well. Yeah. But if you don't feel like you did a good job, or there's doubts or whatever, or like you're just living with that fear, then you're going to want to keep them close and like keep an eye on them, make sure. But then you're just butting in and you're just not letting them learn on their own.
Because when we got married, we lived in, now we can say, I guess, the cities. We don't live there anymore. But we lived in La Mirada. Mm-hmm. And my parents lived in Cerritos, which was, 12 minutes away? We didn't even have to get on a freeway.
About 12 or 15. Mm-hmm.
Was that far enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean...
So you're talking about like a short distance.
That's not the same zip code. That's not the same zip code.
So it could be in a different city. Just nearby.
Yeah, in a different city. I mean, in California, all the cities are like right next to each other, so it's not like there's much distance. But just far enough where it's like, if you really want to be alone, you could be alone. And you don't have to worry about like your in-laws just all of a sudden randomly like knocking on your door. Yeah. And if your in-laws are randomly knocking on your doors, then you might want to ask if they have nothing better to do. Yeah.
So for you, that verse means like a physical distance, at least like a city apart.
A physical and a physical distance, like, I mean, have your calls. Hey, I miss you. Mm-hmm. Hey, we should like have dinner one of these days. But if you're like having dinner like every second day or every day, I mean, I don't think that's wise, to be honest.
Every day or every other day, you said. Why?
Because you're not detaching. There's something wrong. I from my perspective, there's something wrong in that picture, whether it's the kids that don't feel secure in what they're doing, which means, were you not mature enough to make the decision that you just made of marrying this person? Yeah. Or it's the mom that just like, I'm not sure if my kid's going to screw up, or if the person that they married is going to screw up, so I need to keep an eye on them. And I think it's just not healthy.
Yeah. So, because you were saying right now, Like it's not detaching. So the purpose you think of being that physical distance, or how the Bible says like leaving your family to cleave on to your wife, is that detaching, is that purpose of, okay, you were, for example, I was family Perez. This distance now is to make me a Garcia. Is that detachment stage is to make me into one with you? Or what do you think the purpose of that detachment be now that one's married?
I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, you're going to transform into a Garcia or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I do think is, I think a parent goes from like parenting you every single day to now almost like becoming more of a mentor. Where it's like a mentor, you don't, at least I don't think, that you talk to them every single day. Like, hey, what should I do today? Like, should I work out today? Should I read a book today? Like, no, I think like a parent would, a mentor goes, here's the outline of life.
Yeah.
Go do it. And then whenever you have an issue or whatever, hey, you can reach out to me. And the same thing with a parent. Like, I think a parent like lets you leave, lets you get married. And it's like, okay, like, I feel like I taught you enough. Like, you're going to have to learn on your own regardless.
Yeah.
And so I think that time of separation is like, okay, A, you're learning how to be compatible with this person that you decided to marry. The moment that you start living together, you're already starting to figure out like their things that they like, that they don't like, their pet peeves, their rhythms, their habits, their patterns. So you're learning that part. And then there might be some friction, but that friction is okay. Like, you're going to have to figure it out. Like, not for it, and I kind of put it together with like having a therapist. Like, I don't think you should be calling a therapist every single problem that you have. Like, they give you skills in those sessions, and it's like, go home and practice them.
Yeah.
When a problem arises, use the skills that I gave you. Same thing with a parent. Like, you shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, like, we're fighting over, like, she likes the color blue and I like the color red. Like, what do we do about this? It's like, figure it out. Like, you decided I'm grown enough to live with this person, marry this person, have sex with this person, and make a life with this person. So figure it out. And a lot of people are scared of that. And I think that's why a lot of people have their mothers and their fathers on speed dial. Like, oh my gosh, this. But the more that you do that, you're using them as a crutch. And if you use them as a crutch, you're never going to grow.
Yeah.
You have to have that time of, okay, there's going to be fights. There's going to be problems. We're going to have discussions. We might even have really ugly fights, but we got to figure it out. If we get to a point where just like it's dragging on, or like there's resentment building up, or like, okay, no, this is a big one. Like, okay, yeah, that's when you call in the help. The help might be the parents, might be pastors, whatever, but like, call in the help. There's like a certain point. But like, if you're calling them for like the smallest things, like, oh, we had a fight over, I don't know, she got jealous over a text, or that I liked some sort of photo. It's just like, no, figure that out. Figure that out on your own.
And I think a good advice that I was told, and I truly believe, I think every family is different. So for sure, know your family and be honest with yourself. But it's like your sisters, your parents, they are like usually 100% you. And so if you tell them about a fight, they kind of like take that so personal. And then the next day you might get over it, or you might forgive him, and they still like hold on to that. And so it's just like, think twice. Like, if you get over it tomorrow, even though you don't feel like you might, but if you get over it tomorrow, is that something that you want your parents to kind of like resent, or at least like your siblings, like remember him for? Which again, I don't think my family had ever had issues with that. But I have heard of families who like, they kind of start not liking them. It's like, remember he got you mad? And it's like, oh, I'm over it. Like, you should be too, because they share too much with their family.
I don't fully agree with that, just because if you remember when we talked about the domestic violence,
yeah,
we were like, you got to open up. We're kind of contradicting that right now, just because. Okay, I think so. For example, with your mom, your mom was very equal. She was very just, I would say.
Yeah.
And so like, we could bring something up and she could see the good in both of us still. And she could see like what the issue was. And she would be I believe, from my perspective, pretty unbiased.
Yeah, I agree.
Should be like, okay, here's the issue. Like, I really want you guys both to succeed. I don't want you to win or you to win. Like, I want both of you guys to succeed as a one unit.
Yeah, but I don't feel like that's every.
100%. I think there are some people, you need to find somebody like that. Somebody that can love you both equally.
Yeah.
And that could be neutral, and that wants to see the couple succeed, not just one person.
And I think that's what like Nate was saying about friends that are married. Right.
And then, but I do think that it is important for family to be in the loop in regards to just maybe the general stuff. Like if in passing they like, hey, how's it been or whatever. Like, I don't think the whole like, oh, we've been great, blah, blah, blah. But really behind closed doors, like you've been fighting like every day, you know? But I think, hey, like you can say some, like if they're that type of family that, you know, like they might hold something against my partner or whatever.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh, you know, we've been having our discussions and stuff, but we're trying to work it out. Like at least let them in the loop of like, hey, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to sit here and lie to you like, oh, we're perfect. Because then you have those families like they always told us like they were fine. And all of a sudden, like surprise, like this huge thing happened.
Yeah.
So I think there should be some openness.
I think it has to be a balance. Like you have to know your family if they're toxic and if they're going to throw it at his face or her face and maybe not get over it, then you know like who to share with. Because I hear of the toxic family. But yeah, I do agree like not to be fake. That's never good for anyone. And especially if your family loves you and is looking out for you and you know they have the best interest for you. And if that for you, that means your marriage, then let them know. And in that same regard, because I mean, for us, thankfully, again, our family issues, it's not that we have had none, but I think it's very minimal to like what I hear because, well, like how you said, your mom is in Canada. My mom's even further away. Even when she was alive, though, I remember like, I don't remember you having issues with her at all. Like you had issues with me, but I don't remember you having issues with her. I think our issues came later. And then I think the problem was with me. I don't remember like being like, oh, David and his family, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the problems with me was that I've said this time and time again, and I will say this, like I love my family. I feel like I had a great childhood growing up. And so this is maybe something to think about if you're either already married or you're thinking to get married or you're dating, because even if you came from like a good family, it's kind of hard to make that transition from a wife or from a daughter and a sister to like a wife and what that looks like. And there was a little bit of tension for me and even like for you as well. Because my family was like, they were my everything. They were good to me. I was proud of them. Like I had their back. They had my back. We would get on each other's nerves. Like we'd fight like sisters and like, you know, my parents would annoy me. I'd annoy them. Sure. Like we were like siblings. I was a normal kid. But then when I got married, I didn't know how to be on like Team Garcia. And sometimes I either pick my family side, and I remember you being hurt, but you couldn't say that you were hurt, like vulnerable. So you'd just be mad because you couldn't like identify that mushy feeling that we said usually we hide behind. Mm-hmm. Or I wouldn't say anything and you'd be like, that's just as bad. Like you not saying anything, you not defending me is like, you might as well be on their side. And I feel like it took me.
Give an example.
I couldn't think of a lame example. If you can think of a concrete example, let me know. But for example, it'd be like, where do we want to eat? And I want to eat, I don't know, burgers, and my family does too, but you don't. Like, come on, David, come on. And then if I can't convince him, okay, I agree with them in front of them. And he'd be like, seriously? Like you're choosing their side? Or if they're like, oh, we want to eat burgers. Oh, David wants to eat that. And then I'd just say nothing and be like, oh, I don't know. Like I wouldn't take your side. That's like the lamest example I can think of.
Yeah, that's not an exact example for anybody listening. That is a very lame example, but I don't think we could both think of anything. But I do remember the times where I'd be like just furious. Like you didn't stand up for me. You didn't like, because I always knew the type of character that I had, and I never, and I knew how, I'm going to say it, like how sensitive you guys all grew up. And I'm like, I can't be me because all these people are just going to get offended. And so I was expecting you to be like the happy medium, to just be like, hey guys, like how about we do this instead or whatever. And yeah, there'd be times where you just stay quiet, or I remember kind of like you telling me like, oh yeah, like that doesn't sound like a bad idea. And by bad idea, I mean like my idea. And then they would say their thing, and you have never been one that likes confrontation in the first place. And you know how passionate, especially Melody, can be in regards to when she really wants
Shout
something.
Out, Bello.
And so you'd just be like, It's almost like I'd see you be like, what's the lesser of two evils? And it's almost like I felt like you'd like, I'd rather deal with David than I would have to deal with like, or contradicting my family. And it was probably because like you were so used to just whatever. Like I usually keep my mouth shut anyways. So I'll just go with whatever they do, and we usually end up fine. But the thing is, now you were married to an opinionated person that liked to stand their ground and like to do their own thing. And now you were just like caught in between.
Yeah, I think it was difficult for me because I never saw it as a big deal. Like I've always been like passive, like very, okay. I think it's being in a family of four, kind of being like in the middle somewhere, so many opinionated people around me. I was just like, I'm just going to go with the flow. So in my head, I'm like, it's never that serious. And I'm just like, okay, like whatever. And then you'd get like so passionate about it. And I'm just like, what the? And then my family would get so passionate. And I'm just like, yeah, like caught in the middle between like a rock and a hard place. And sometimes I think to get, I guess, like the pressure off of me. I don't know if it's the pressure off of me or like I really want to do what my family says, but I can't because I'm married. So I'm like, well, David says, and you'd be like, why can't you say we think? Or like we're deciding. Like I'd be like, oh, well, David said this. And even still, sometimes like I start like typing it, I have to like catch myself and be like, we think. And in my head, I'm like, I don't think this. David thinks this. But I think that was the hardest like transition for me, being from like a family unit to now like us.
Yeah, and I think what was hard is, especially now that I'm doing therapy, like I've grown up with this feeling that nobody ever really has my back.
Yeah, I remember you would tell me that. Yeah.
And I think that was like my trigger for me is like, hey, I'm married to this person. I'm expecting that this person's going to have my back. And I feel like you would just, what's the saying? Like you'd leave me out to dry, just like, all right, buddy, you're on your own. Like David's the one that wants this. It was not me. And I'd be like, and I remember being angry, but again, anger for me is always like the go-to like emotion. But anger is just like the tip of the iceberg. Like underneath, like under the water is like all these emotions of like rejection, alone, nobody's got my back, all these thoughts, you know. And as a Salvadorian, like if there's Salvadorians listening to you, you guys already know, like the wheels start turning. She doesn't love me. She doesn't respect me. She doesn't have my back. We aren't one. She hasn't fully separated from her family. Like, will she ever separate from her family? Will she ever choose you before anybody else? Like, does she really love you that way? Is she ever going to be able to selflessly love you like that? Will she ever be able to defend you or like stand up for you? Or will you ever even kind of like deserve that? Like, did she even feel like you deserve to be stood up for, you know? Like, did I even earn it or whatever? And like, again, I grew up like that too. Like you earn whatever it is that you get. And if you don't get it, it's because you didn't earn it. And just like, okay, cool. Like, so that was basically all the emotions that I felt. It just really sucked. And it was something like from my own like heart and like past pains and traumas or whatever, like you want to call it, it was just a trigger to me. And that's why I would always break it out of proportion. I'm sure if I was a healthy person, I'd be able to like just quietly talk to you about it. But I remember like,
yeah. Well, and I feel like, I mean, obviously as you were saying that, I'm like, that sucks to have felt that. And then on my coin, I'm just like, it was such a huge pressure because I didn't know like what would trigger you. And I obviously wasn't thinking that. Like I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to reject him right now by staying quiet, or I'm going to show him that he's alone. Like it was just.
You were probably just like, what's this dude's problem? Like, what the heck?
But then I would feel bad. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this isn't me. Like I'm not someone who really cares about where we eat or where we go or what time we leave or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I mean, it was a huge adjustment. I wonder if a lot of people have adjusted to this, or maybe this is just typical of like us. I think everyone has to deal with a transition period, like pre-marriage and post, of like how the dynamics are. And that is going to look different for every couple, for every family. Mm-hmm. But like this was ours. And do you think it could have been avoided? Like, do you think there could have been something to prep us for? Like, I'm just asking these questions so that if there is someone listening who's maybe not married and they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, is it just something that kind of like growing pains? You're just going to have to, once you're in it, go through it.
I think that's why premarital counsel is very important. I would like to hope that both parties are very open during that premarital counsel sessions.
Yeah.
Where they can just air everything out. Like maybe if we would have done premarital counseling, like that would have come out of, hey, like I have these issues. Like maybe somebody would have asked like, hey, David, if this scenario, which could be exactly the same thing that you just said, would happen, how would you feel? Mm-hmm. And maybe it could have been in that session where I'd be like, well, I'd feel like this and this and this, and I'd be super angry. And then we could start unfolding that. And as we start unfolding that, we can also put like the expectations on the table.
Yeah.
How can we move forward in a healthy manner? But granted, we didn't do that. So we were kind of just like, again, learning as we'd go. Like that same scenario felt like it almost kept repeating and repeating. I'd get angry and just like, you never have my back and blah, blah, blah.
The same
and
argument.
I feel like eventually you would get tired of it and be like, oh my gosh, this again? Like, can't he just like get over it? But again, it was from like a pain that I was dragging along, and I didn't know how to handle it. So anger was a go-to. Like I didn't know how to say like, I feel rejected. I feel sad. Like I feel hurt, blah, blah, blah. Like, that nobody's ever had my back. And so it was hard. And I do think premarital counseling is very important. It'll help you maybe speed things along, or at least do things more efficiently. Like where discussions come up and like, oh, we kind of touched on that before. Like we can recognize it and we know what skill to use. We can get this moving along, right? But I do think that it is also part of what I always say. When you get married, the guy agrees when he marries this woman that she is going to be his help. So she's going to be opinionated. She's going to try to bring things out of him that he might not be comfortable with, but it's part of the help. She sees something in you that she wants to pull out, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And the vice versa, the woman agrees that this man is going to be the leader.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's a machista? No. But that means that we can have a discussion, and if we don't really have an agreement, then you kind of have to defer to his judgment and be like, all right, I'm going to trust that you're going to lead us in the right path. And
that's hard to do.
And that's, especially at the beginning, it's very hard to do.
Yeah. Like
because
to trust.
although you're saying like, I marry you and I want to be with you for the rest of my life, then you realize, oh, like I would imagine I'm putting myself in a woman's shoe, like, oh shoot, like now I actually have to like listen to this dude. Like if we don't agree to something and then he has like a different opinion, I just have to let go and trust him. Like the heck? Like no. I could see how that'd be hard. And the same thing as a man, like this woman, like she keeps the usually what a man says is this woman keeps nagging me. he was nagging me about this and nagging me. Oh my goodness, I'm freaking tired of this. But if you listen in between the lines of what she's saying is, I see this good in you and I want to pull it out. It's almost like there's something in you that you don't see in yourself. But if you pull it out, like you're going to be a better version of you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Granted, maybe the communication isn't there and maybe it does come across as nagging. But I think there's a part of it and there's benefit in that.
Yeah.
So the communication part takes some time to get used to as well. Big time.
Yeah, for sure. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, I don't know why we didn't take premarital counseling. I don't think we knew where to go or we didn't have any resources. Because I feel like I would have totally been down. I would have loved it, but...
I honestly think you might have mentioned it because I think our friends at church, the Almendadas, were doing it for some people. And I think we said that we wouldn't have enough time or we didn't think Zoom or like a video conference would be effective. I don't fully remember, but I do kind of remember you bringing it up. And I'm like, I'm going to show up like a week before, like how much premarital counseling.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, like how much premarital counseling are we going to really have?
Yeah.
You know, it was just...
Because I'm like, yeah, I feel like I've always been down to learn and like, why didn't we do that? But, so it's your fault. Just kidding.
Yes, kind of.
Yeah, I do agree. Premarital counseling, we've never taken it, so we don't really know like what questions they look at or even how extensive. And I'm sure it varies location to location, but it never hurts.
Yeah.
To get someone wiser, to get someone who's already been there, who... like they have scoped the land. They know what to watch out for. It might not be exactly what you're going to go through, but having a perspective of, because you haven't even entered that, is a huge help. Like there's not going to be, it's not going to be wasted time.
Yeah. I think what would be important in premarital counseling to do, you know, a good amount of sessions. I don't know, 5 to 10 or whatever. Because it does take some time for, you know, the counselor to get to know you and kind of like, okay, like I see these tendencies here.
Yeah.
And when they ask certain questions, they're kind of like picking at, like, I see these kind of tendencies in this person, so let me pick at it and see what comes out. You know, like.
But I think you're thinking of like a therapist. I mean, because again, I haven't mentioned my premarital counseling, but I feel like counseling is just like, oh, here's advice, here's lessons, you know? And it's not really like a therapist.
No,
like,
that sounds like a conference to me. Like, hey, you're going to get married? Here's this premarital conference. But I think okay, so what I picture for premarital counseling is like the one topic that I think everyone agrees on that is like a hot topic in marriages always is money. How are you going to manage the money? Are you going to have joint accounts? What happens if she makes a little extra money? What happens if he makes a little extra money?
We should do a podcast of that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Put it down as a note. But like, so money usually is a thing. Who's the shopper? Who's the spender? Who's the saver? How are you going to deal with these things? What if she happens to go above like budget? Like, how are you going to react? You know, and then let's say let's say for our example, like I'm the saver and you're the spender. If she were to go over, like, how would you react? Like, and if I'm honest, like I'd probably flip out. Like we have a budget, we have to stick to it. We have goals and blah, blah, blah. Then the counselor might be like, okay, like I see these things and they might be an issue. Like, let's start working on them right now. Like, why do you feel that way? And get that. It always kind of boils down to understanding. This is where all these reactions and all these emotions are coming from. And then getting you, let's say, to understand. And the same vice versa. Like, this is where all the emotions of like spending or the reasons why are coming from. I need to understand. And like, okay, we've reached a level of understanding. And now how do we move forward? Yeah.
And I think going back to like the family topic, because as you were talking, I was like, well, that's a huge point of maybe the purpose of that verse, and we'd have to do some like hermeneutics to see like what is the context of it, like what do we think, again, God put it in the Bible, or the Holy Spirit guided Moses to put it in the Bible. As you were saying, how a man is supposed to lead his family, and I think that is going to be difficult if you have the father, if it is a traditional family, right? If you have the father in your first family, like your immediate family, And then you have now this man that wants to lead you, but you're still kind of under the covering of this dad, of this father. It's like, how is the man supposed to learn how to lead? How is he supposed to lead when you're kind of under your father? You're kind of under him. You're kind of like choosing depending on whose opinion you like more or whose guide you like more. And you're not really letting the new husband, how you say, like flap his wings, because you're like, no, my father's a better leader, my father, or whatever. It doesn't have to be the father. It could be it could be the mom or something. But the point is, we believe the way that God intended family to be functioning is that the husband is that leader. And I think it was a little bit hard for me. And that's probably seems like people are thinking like, what the heck? Like our situation wasn't grave. It wasn't a huge deal. It was just like times to meet up, where to meet up, locations or whatever, like opinions that in the grand scheme of life didn't matter. And I think I could have taken that route of like, it doesn't matter, David, like get over it. I don't think I did. Do you think I think in the beginning I did. That's what hurt you. But I think like I had to learn, and none of this was said in like therapy or we didn't like discuss it, but I had to learn like this matters to him. I need to stand behind him. Even if I don't understand, he's my leader and I just have to follow his lead on this. Do you think I made have I made you feel like a leader in that like aspect now when it comes to my family? Do you feel like I still struggle with that? Like, how do you see it?
Okay, keep that question in the chamber, because as you were talking, I thought about one thing, and you were saying like, I think there's two scenarios, and very like on a general level, there's two scenarios. There's one where you grew up with a good father, and there's one where you grew up with not so great of a father, right? Let's say in your case, you grew up with a great father. And I can say that because you kept comparing me to him all the time. David, my dad does this. David, my dad does that. David, and I got tired of that. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm not there. And when I think about that, again, going back to you just got married. And you've decided that this man, this is from a woman's perspective, you decided that this man is going to be your leader. You have to realize that this man has not led anything in his life. Nothing. Like, okay, oh, well, he was a youth leader in church. All right, cool. Like, how did that help him get ready for marriage? You know, like, this is the first time he is leading a whole family. And you are comparing him to a, let's say, call it a finished product. Like it's apples and oranges, really.
Yeah.
And so that's where it can be like a little bit unfair, where like you kept telling me like, my dad does this, my dad does that, my dad would never do this, my dad would never do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not your freaking dad, homegirl. Like, and then there's the other scenario where you grew up with not a good dad. And usually what happens there is like the person, let's say like the girl I see is like desperate to like get out of the home because they're like, there's nothing for me here. Then they find this dude, and maybe her standards aren't even that high because she doesn't even know what high standards are in regards to having a man, because the man that she's had around isn't that great. And so she sees the first person and just like, all right, I'm going to marry you. And you see that person. I mean, this isn't always the case. This isn't 100% thing, but usually they have slept together before marriage because she's looking for that comfort. She's looking for that love. And it's just like, all right, let's do this thing. And again, she might be walking into marriage thinking this man is going to be everything my dad never was. And again, that man that you are marrying has never led a thing in his life. Yeah. So again, you got to cut that dude some grace, because you might come in here, maybe you might not verbalize it word for word, but you like through your actions might be like, I expect you to be everything that my father wasn't. And if you don't, you're going to fail. And I'm going to let you know that you're a failure. And then just all this like toxicity comes out. And the dude, again, is brand spanking new to leading a family, to being married, to loving a woman like in marriage. And it's like there needs to be grace, I think, given both ways. Granted, I just said it from the perspective from a woman to a man, but same thing. Like for a woman, like there needs to be grace given on both sides. Just like we are starting this together, we are learning together, and that's the beauty of separating from your family. We shouldn't be going to our family for everything. We need to figure this out, and that's how me and you are going to mature.
Yeah,
This is how we're going to learn. But yeah, that's what I was thinking before. Well, the question was. Have you made
have
me
I got
feel?
it down?
Yeah, I would say so.
Like, have you felt? I haven't. I don't remember the last time you said like, oh, so you don't have my back when it came to
Yeah, no,
my family.
That's been a long time. We read a book called Love and Respect, and that book is really good. I would recommend that to any married or unmarried couples.
And my mom recommended it to us. I remember she like loved it.
Yeah, and so what that basically talks about is how a man receives love and how a woman receives love. So how a man receives love is through respect. And the things that were happening in our marriage, I felt disrespected by. But again, it goes a lot deeper than that. But at the very base of it, where the anger was coming from is, you don't respect me. You don't care about my opinion. You don't care about my voice. You don't care about what I want. Like, you're not taking it into account. Like, and again, I just felt like a lost little puppy because I'm like, my family's all the way 3,000 miles away. I have no one here to really have my back. And the person that I married, I feel like doesn't have my back.
Yeah.
And I feel like your family was never against me, but it's just like when you feel alone, you do kind of feel like everyone is against you, even though if they're not, you know? But anyways, this book talks about like how a man feels love, and it's through respect. That the best thing that a woman could do is like basically honor and respect her husband, and he'll be the happiest dude in the whole world. And how does that come? And that's what you've been doing now is like, maybe your family brings a topic up like, hey, like we're thinking about doing this and this and this and this, instead of you just being like, oh yeah, we'll be there. You're like, okay, well, you don't even say it. You're just like, hey, babe, they brought this up. What do you think? Will it work? How can we make it work? If it doesn't work, like, how can we make this happen? And we talk about it, and we're like, we come to like an agreement.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas before, I feel like it was like, hey, David, this is what's happening. You better show up. And be like, oh, well, I have something on that day, or I really didn't want to do that. It was like, I don't even care. Like, I'm not even going to bring. It's not even a discussion. Like,
Yeah.
you're either in or you're a bad husband. That's what I felt like. And so nowadays, I feel like we talk about everything. Like, and then if like we're in the midst of like a plan. So my thing, to be open, obviously, I don't know if you guys have gotten this by now, but I'm not a very spontaneous person. I'm a very like, I need a plan to everything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we're in the middle of a plan, and you know, people are spontaneous and they go, oh, let's just change directions and let's go that way. And I'm just like, oh, and you're just like, hey babe, like, are you okay with this? Or like, and you even tell me like, if not, like we could just keep doing whatever it is that you like we had planned. And like that right there already like puts me at ease. It's like my wife sees that this could really bug me, like that it goes against how I usually am, but she's acknowledging it. And now I feel like she has my back. She's let me know that we could continue moving forward however it is that we had planned, or we can go that way. But wherever, she's basically saying in between all the lines, wherever you go, I go. And that for me, again, that's how a man receives love. I'm just like, all right, my wife's got my back. Like, and most of the time when I feel like, what's the word? Disarmed, because I'm like, there's no chance of me being angry. I usually go like, all right, yeah, let's just go with them. No big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and granted, it needs to be something that I really don't care about. Like if the other thing that we really wanted to, like that we were going to do, I really wanted to do, then I'm like, But yeah, for the most part, like when you do that, I'm just like, all right, she has my back. Like there's, and in the last like year or so, like I think that's where like our bond has been getting like way better, where I'm just like, this woman has my back.
Yeah.
Granted, we do fight, and sometimes I get triggered, and I'm like, no, she doesn't have my back, you know. But for the most part, I'm just like, no, like we've learned that together.
Yeah.
We've learned that obviously through couples therapy and stuff, but me and you working things out as well, and just like loving each other. That's what it really comes down to, like listening to each other and loving each other, understanding each other, and looking out for each other.
Yeah. Well, I feel like at the basis of that, like, I think the root of it is like trust. Like, do you trust the other person or not? Because I think that's mainly the reason why I couldn't, quote unquote, stand behind you. Was I maybe in an unconscious way, like, thought you were unselfish. Like, no, you want to do just what you want to do. Like, it could have seemed like that. And like, if my family recommends another way or whatever, or they want to do something else, like, he's just like all in or all out. And it'd be like all out. And I'm just like, well, I don't mind. I'm willing to put my family's needs first, your needs, like whoever's needs. And there was moments where I'd be like, no, he's being selfish. But I think how it goes to trusting you, of knowing that you're not being selfish. You're looking out for sometimes even for our needs of like, no, it's too late. Like, we need to go to bed, or it's for the kids, or knowing like, hey, I'm doing this because I'm uncomfortable. It's not that I'm being selfish, but this is really like bothering me. But like, I needed to trust you, like trust that you loved me, trust that you weren't just, I guess, like preserving your ego or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that it's a huge learning curve, because that just comes by getting down to the deep of it, like doing life together, seeing, like going through the hard stuff. And so I do see like it could be a learning curve, but I do think it is important to get to the mushy part, like dig into those feelings that maybe come out as anger and like they're just being toxic. Like, okay, let's remove that. What is it? Because you probably love you and vice versa, but you can't move on. And I think for the best interest of the other, if you feel like no one has your back, how you said, like, no, I can't trust this person to watch out for my feelings.
Yeah.
And once I was able to be like, he loves me, like he wants what's best for me, then it was very easy to put like your needs there and vice versa. I think that's what we learned at therapy.
Yeah.
It was, we both want to be seen. We both want to be understood. We both want to be loved, but we were like, we had our guards up, and I was like, no, I'm going to do it for myself because he can't do it. And you were doing the same thing. Like, I have to protect myself because she can't do it. And once we like, what is it? Like, we had like the white flag, like, wait, don't shoot. Hold on. I'm going to put my guard down. And you were like, okay, I will do too. And we're just like, is anyone going to hurt each other? And then we like start practicing like love. It's like, oh, I can totally be like vulnerable. I can look out for him because he's going to look out for me. And
yeah.
But I think trust is like a huge, huge thing. You'd agree? Yeah,
I do. And going back to the topic, it's, again, very important for you to take that distance. And the reason why I brought it back there is because I remember a funny story, getting a message from your sister.
That's what I was
very like
hinting at in the beginning.
What is it? Like the first, like, what was it, the week or two? Or like I don't think we were even married 1 month.
I don't remember.
But for whatever reason, I guess, were you always close to your sister, Melody?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you guys were very close. And I forget what we were fighting about. But me and Melody started like bumping heads about you and some plan or something like that. And I was even more prideful then than I am now.
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah, like 100 times.
I was ready to swing at whoever. And I don't remember the details, but I do remember I got Melody so mad. Melody is your youngest sister. She's younger than you are. But I remember getting her so mad that she texted me and she said, before she was your wife, she's my sister. Yeah. And I just laughed at her. I'm like, you think sister trumps wife? Like, what are you talking about? And
now when we tell the story, like, Melody laughs and she's just like, yeah, I completely like don't know what I was thinking.
But she was like very mad. And I think that was like the harshest thing she could say as a trying to stay Christian, I think. I think that was her way of like trying to hurt me, of like, before like, she was your wife, she's my sister. And I'm like, okay.
But I don't even remember what the argument. I wish I didn't remember the argument.
There were still some territorial things going on around you, like, at least for Melody's sake.
I think I kind of remember, not that maybe it doesn't matter, but I kind of remember maybe it had to do with like worship or something. And I was the middleman. She'd like tell David this, and then I'd tell you, and you were like, why are you getting her into it? Like, just tell me or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause she's my sister, I could talk to her about it. And you're like, just tell me. And then I think that's what but I think even her, like, it's an adjustment for everyone, the whole family. 'Cause you as the husband and as the wife, I mean, it was easy for you. You're like, you completely left them, I feel like. So you weren't like super attached, but it's hard for the married couple to be like, okay, we're one. We're going to do things as one. And then it's an adjustment for the family to say they're one. They're going to do things as one. Because some family members can be like, wait, but they're changing, or things are not the way they used to be, or no, we were this close, and like, what's going on? Or kind of seen as like, oh, he's kind of taking her, like, what's her role look like to me? And so there has to be grace from the couple to the family, from the family to the couple. And hopefully everyone is equally yoked to realize, like, what's the purpose here? Like, the purpose is that this man and woman should be one. They should be each other's everything before everyone. Like, they should put themselves first. Obviously, first is God, but then comes them. And if the family can't see that, if like the mom is like, I'm the mom and he needs to honor me, because I have heard of crazy moms like that they get jealous when the son gives attention to the wife. And it's like, what do you think the marriage is? You think he got married to have another person to worship you? Like, what? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so hopefully everyone is on the same page, like has the same definition of marriage, knows what marriage is for, so that it makes it easier because there's gonna be missteps and disagreements, or not see eye to eye is fine. But at the end of the day, looking hindsight, they can be like, oh yeah, we were in the wrong because they were trying to be one. And so that's why it's so important, I think, to be yoke-minded with everyone around you, friends even, because it can go with if you were a bachelor and you had guy friends and now you get married and those guy friends are like, hey, I want to hang out, and like they don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's wise that if you surround yourself and do life with same-minded people.
Yeah, I do remember one of the first nights, I think, that we were married and we were back home. I remember you crying.
I remember that.
In bed. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? You're like, I miss my family. I'm like, homegirl, they're literally like 15 minutes away. We can go. She's like, I know, but
it was too quiet. I said, like, the house is too quiet.
The house is too quiet. And she's like,
alone.
I feel alone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember like I did get hurt at that because I'm like, but I'm here. Like, I'm not enough,
Yeah.
But like, again, it's just like that process, that transition of just like, I'm no longer with my family. Like, and your family was always, whenever you guys are all together, you guys are all loud. Like, just
we're all out. And it wasn't even just our family. Like, there would be friends over. My mom would always like house someone.
Yeah.
Like, it was huge.
And now
commotion.
it was completely different. And crazy now though.
Now I like the quiet.
Now you love the quiet. You don't want nobody in your house.
I don't know. Come over and love hosting. No, I do like it. I like that depends
not
on
like your family
Yeah,
did
not like
it.
my family did it. Not like my mom did it. Definitely I'm in a different season where I'm like overstimulated every single day, and so I love my peace and quiet now, like when I can get it. But yeah, and I remember crying on the plane to like our honeymoon and be like, oh my gosh, like how is it gonna be with my family? Like it's weird because I've always wanted to get married young. Like if I could have gotten married at 18, I would have, I think. And so it was like my dream. It was not like, oh man, I got married and I didn't want this and no, it was like I always wanted to get married, and I knew and I was excited for our own apartment, and it's not like I wanted to live with them or anything. But when reality hit, it's like, okay, I didn't know how quiet this place could be. After like, I think a month, 2 months, because I remember you started visiting my mom. Like after work, you wouldn't even go home. We would like go to my mom. And then after a bit, I'm like, okay, babe, maybe we should stop, like try to take it easy. Like I kind of got annoyed, and I was like, maybe we should learn how to just go home, not go to my parents' house, like us do life together. So it's just getting used to like, what's this new balance?
Yeah, I do remember we had that conversation. And it was a little bit tricky in our situation just because we knew that your mom was sick, you know. Granted, we had no idea how much time she had.
Yeah.
But, you know, that we knew that we wanted to spend time with her. We knew that. But yeah, like we were recently married. And so that's the part that made it tricky. Like we needed to have our time alone and figure things out on our own. But there was like a good amount of, and that's happened not just at the beginning, but in certain times in our marriage where we've kind of like asked each other, like, are we not okay with just being me and you? Like, do we always need somebody around to like filter? Do we not like each other's company? Do we not like the topics we talk about? Like,
yeah, because there was a time where we could, like, every time we would want to go on a date, we'd be like, oh, let's invite our friends. Like, let's invite our friends. But we both like agreed. We both loved it. But then we were like, wait, we haven't been on a date, just you and I. Like all our dates have been with people. I think now, like we're like, oh, maybe we could, but like we usually go out alone now. Like I feel like that's our go-to at least.
Yeah.
Like our setting is set at alone. And then I feel like these conversations here just show like we can be alone. What do you think?
But yeah, that's. I remember having those conversations. I remember visiting your family all the time. I remember us having that conversation like, oh man, we need to like chill out with, because I do feel like and that's why I brought it up before, like we did kind of like use it as a crutch. Like, maybe without nobody saying anything, but maybe we were nervous just being me and you at home. Like maybe we were nervous that we'd get bored or wouldn't know what to do.
Or blow up in an argument because things were really rocky in the beginning.
Blow up in an argument, or you didn't want to cook because you didn't know how to cook. At the beginning,
I still don't know how to cook.
I remember you would just fry everything.
Yeah, like that whole first year.
What's that, like fried meat with
Milanesa.
Milanesa. I used to make that all the time.
I have not made it since that year because
thank the Lord, that's all just grease.
I think I reversed us like 5 years, like that first year of our life. But then the second year, because I felt so guilty, I'm like, this can't be healthy. All I knew how to cook was fried food. And then that second year, I remember like for 1 year or 2 years, it was chicken and broccoli, like to the point where I can't cook chicken today. Like I was so fed up with chicken, like just, it wasn't even 2 years. I think it was like way more.
Yeah.
But I was like so fed up with chicken. But it's just learning.
Yeah. And I guess the only question that I would have is how much, because we're talking about the topic of family and kind of like being newlyweds, how much should you listen to a family's opinion? Like, let's say, for example, we could have a one scenario where it's the opinion is kind of out of the blue. Mika, make sure that he's doing work around the house. If he's not doing work around the house, he's not really a man. Mika,
that's a hard question.
Make sure that, and maybe they don't know anything, and this is just like a free for all like opinion. Mika, make sure that he helps you with the dishes at least. Like make him do something. Like don't make it be all you, or make sure that he's writing you a love poem once a week, or you know, like.
Yeah, where's my love poem?
Some families can be very opinionated.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, how much should you listen to a family's opinion, whether they know what the situation is? So like they know what's going on. Maybe you've been fighting and they give like an opinion, or they don't know anything and they're just kind of like observing. Because I remember you had a grandmother that was very opinionated.
I was about to tell that story.
I'm not going to name which grandmother, but she was very opinionated.
Well, one died.
And she was like, yo, your husband, like he needs to get it together.
I want to tell that story.
Okay, go ahead.
No, but that's a hard question, I feel like, because it's case by case scenario and it's family by family. I feel like if you were growing up and your family, you already know if you grew up in a toxic family. Like if your family's constantly like just, oh, why can't you do this? Or why can't you be with friends who do this? Or why is the people around, like if they constantly were just looking at everything wrong that you picked or you did or whatever, then don't take their advice. Like you only know if your family was good for your mental health or not. But like, again, my family, my mom, even with my friends, I don't know if she liked them or not. Like she would give me like little like, oh, okay, just be careful. But she would never say like, I don't want you to hang out with them. Like, I don't like them. Mm-hmm. If she was thinking it, probably, was she praying? Probably like, God, I don't think they're good for her. But she knew like, this is her life. And at the end of the day, I could push her away with her comments, or I can like make us closer. So my mom was very wise of when she was going to bring up something that she didn't like. Same thing with my makeup, my clothes. It wasn't opinionated. So it's just kind of like gauge if your family, again, was like, oh, why are you wearing that? Why are you dressed that? Like, it's like, okay, take it with a grain of salt, right? Mm-hmm. But also it's like, okay, what are they saying? Because you said a couple of things. If for example, like, oh, have him clean up dishes, like have him help. Like, I don't think that's a bad advice, especially if you are exhausted and you are a mother. And if you yourself were feeling something, like maybe you were internalizing and you're like, I wish I had help or whatever. And they're just kind of confirming something that you were already thinking. Like, take that as confirmation of, hey, they see you. They're kind of giving you that heads up, or like, you know, to say something. But if it's like something random, like that doesn't make a good man, it just makes him like Romeo, like this fantasy, how you said, like that love poem, then it's okay. You married him. Don't try to change him into like Mr. Rome, into something he is not. Mm. Like, I feel like some men are born with it, some are not. They can always learn, yes, but that's not something to nag. And you don't want him to be like that out of a chore or you nagging.
Right.
Because now let me bring up my grandma's example, because I remember, like, I feel like our marriage could have been better, but there was nothing like pressing, like we were about to get divorced either. You know, it was just getting to know each other. And it was after church, and it was my ex-brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he'll watch our videos, but he was the one who got you into the cards. It was like this childish cards, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got my brother-in-law in it, and like, well, he kind of was already in it.
No, he was already in it.
He was already in it, but you guys just like hyped it up to another level. And you already have like an addictive personality. I don't think you were like ever into it. It's just you were looking at, like, seeing it, you got excited, you did your research, and so you just start playing this game. And then it'd be like you guys were meeting regularly, and you were taking it serious, buying cards. I checked the mail, and I knew when a card was going to arrive. Mm-hmm. And then you were like, say you're going to sell it, but I didn't even believe you, like, some of the times. And I remember my grandma, like, she was so irritated because she was saying how can it wasn't all in Spanish, mind you, but she's like, how come after a service, after listening to the word of God and being in his presence, they come and just play this secular game? They should be reading the Bible. They should be like praying on their knees, worshiping, or at least helping around the house. Like, her thing wasn't about like helping around the house, but it was like, how can these like godly men act not so godly? Mm-hmm. And I agreed with her like wholeheartedly. I was like, I hate this game. I think this game is so immature. This game is for children. Like, in that scenario, like, I agreed with her. I didn't agree to like, okay, they should continue service at home like 5 hours. You know, I wasn't like that, but I was like, yeah, I agree. But I didn't turn on you. Like, I didn't say, yes, like I've been telling him, or come on, grandma, come with me. You tell him to his face. Like, I just took what she said respectfully. I said, yes, grandma, yes, grandma. But the reason why I took it, like, even though I completely agreed with her, the reason why I took it with a grain of salt is I looked at her marriage and I was like, let me see if she has the resume of how to make a good husband. And I just looked at it and I was like, well, I don't want my husband to be like yours. So I'm not going to go that route of like, let me tell my husband everything you said. Mm-hmm. But I did listen to her. That. I told you what she said. Yeah, but not of like I told you to change.
This.
Yeah, I was just like out of cheese. Like, can you believe what my grandma said? But I did take away, and I remember like praying. Like I always have prayed for you. And so I remember praying and just being like, God, this isn't the way I want my husband to be. This isn't, I'm pretty sure what you have in mind for him. Like I have more in mind. And I think I've always been, my mom really imparted me into like nagging is such a negative thing. And I think even like me reading the Bible and seeing what the Bible says about a wife using her words for evil and how it can be like cancer, or it could be like might as well not even live in that same home with her. I'm not perfect. There's times where I've nagged, but I think times where I can like where I was able to see like day to night like switches was times where I think it was the Holy Spirit like using his wisdom and speaking through me. So I was just like, wow, babe. I think I kind of like complimented you and was like, wow, babe, like you get so passionate and you're so smart. Like imagine if you just like did this like with the stock market, you could, because you were selling the cards or whatever. It's like, imagine if you could do that, what you're doing, but for like real money, like how much money you could make us. Like if you used your research and your mind and you were just, I think I left that seed and you said you were like thinking about it and you started looking into it and you're like, I can do this. And so that's an example of how I helped you like unleash your potential.
Right.
And I could have nagged and be like, you're useless, good for nothing. You come home and waste your time. Like we're poor because of you or like whatever. But I didn't. And so again, going back to like your original question is like, see who's telling you this. And if they are telling you something that you yourself agreed with, or you, again, it's confirmation, don't just turn on them and be like, oh, you see, they told me this and this. Like ask the Holy Spirit for discernment. Ask for a perfect moment where you can speak life into him, where you can put those seeds to make him grow. Not like, I think I'm not good with planting. I think the only reason I'd want to get into it, because there's so many metaphors that are like beautiful with it. But I think you can kill a plant if you just like uproot it horribly. Like you can just kill it and there it has no future. But if you kind of take out the weeds and you're like you're definitely still uprooting things, but if you're doing it in a way, you're pruning it in a way where it can grow, like that is the complete difference. You don't want to do it in a way where you destroy his ego, you destroy his leadership, you destroy his potential, that he doesn't feel like a man.
Yeah, and I think it goes vice versa. Because I think some mother-in-laws have an expectation on the wives as well.
Yeah.
Your wife better be doing this and blah, blah, blah. Why? Because I did it all for you. And so she's basically saying that the woman that you marry needs to be a copy and paste of me. And that's not always how it works out, you know, but some mother-in-laws can be opinionated and be like, well, oh, she doesn't clean for you. Oh, she doesn't wash your clothes. Oh, she doesn't cook for you. Like, then she's not a real wife and blah, 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 blah. And just like, all right, you know, like, I think, that's another reason why you need to be just you and your wife, you and your husband for a good amount of time, because you figure out what's going to work for you two. Yeah. You know, and I mean, a lot of people are going to have opinions. Society's going to have its opinions. Your family's going to have opinions. Your friends are going to have opinions. But in reality, what matters is what works for us. And
I think being able to love each other and trust each other and be vulnerable of sitting down and doing check-ins, because even season to season, your needs, your wants, your desires are going to change. Yeah. And so I think being one is saying, here's my heart, here's what I'd like, and vice versa. And it's like, how can I meet your needs and how can I meet vice versa? Yeah. And so I think we've been doing a good job at that, where if I feel a frustration, I've noticed, like if I'm short-tempered or like, like if I start resenting you, I'm like, okay, have I voiced my heart to him, or am I just like nagging and like, do I expect him to read my mind? And so I usually sit down and I'm like, David, I don't think it's working. Like our schedule, like this is what I'm noticing. And you're usually like, okay, like I'll do this. And I'm just like, what? Like sometimes it still shocks me, but I'm like, oh, he loves me. Like obviously he wants me to be happy. But I think that's what being one is. It's just learning each other's rhythm, like seeing each other's blind spots, helping each other with the slack, like just, I'm here for you, you're here for me. Yeah. And so I enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did too. But there was topics in here that were mentioned that I'm like, oh, that would be a good one for the future. But if you guys have heard anything that you want us to elaborate on, or if you're interested or have ideas for us as well, we're always looking. So we're not going to stop anytime soon. So please leave your comments down below. Share this with someone who you know is going to get married or maybe is a newlywed that you feel like can enjoy it and maybe just gain wisdom from it. But we're always learning ourselves, and that's what I love about it. I think we're always like, how can we learn? And so thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye.
See ya.